Welcome to the Spirit of Business, where we help businesses learn to thrive. My name is Jamie Pritchard, your host, mortgage agent with mortgageguys.com here in Ontario. And today my guest is Marc Mawhinney. Marc is a lifelong entrepreneur who helps coaches get more clients without paid advertising. He achieves this through his many coaching programs, which includes his podcast, Natural Born Coaches, his Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle Mastermind, and his exclusive hard copy newsletter, Secret Coaches Club. He's been a speaker at events like Social Media Marketing World, frequently makes media appearances, and has contributed to publications like Entrepreneur.com. You can learn more about Marc at www.marc.com, and that's Marc with a C. Marc, welcome.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me. It's Marc.coach, I should say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
www.marc.coach.
And Marc with a C, so I don't want to give another Marc business. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do here at the Spirit of Business is help business owners to thrive. And we have a lot of service businesses in the service industry. You've been in the coaching business now for how long?
Since 2014. So we're looking at over 6 years.
And are you a coach yourself, Marc?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, my background's actually, it's interesting. You're in the mortgage world. My background's in real estate. So before coaching, I did that for 10 years throughout my 20s. Right. And I was a real estate agent, broker, did some flips and things as well. With coaching, I would say I'm a coach, but really the only clients I work with are fellow coaches, helping them build their businesses. So I don't work with any bricks and mortar type clients. I refer them off. I only work with coaches.
Now, I work with a lot of business owners, and I have a background in business banking, commercial financing. And one of the things I always found a struggle for coaches was to find, or for businesses owners, was to find a niche. They say, no, I want to paint a really broad brush. How have you found your business with focusing on just a niche, one niche?
Yeah, I mean, when I got started coaching, I had no niche to speak of. I shouldn't say that. I said I want to help any entrepreneur when I got started, because I'm a big believer in entrepreneurs. I think they don't get the kind of support that they need and aren't valued as much as they should be in society. So I said I want to help any business owner. And what I realized going through those motions in the first year was that I really had to narrow it down because it was too broad. Now, at the time, I was working with a couple traditional clients, traditional bricks and mortar business owners, and two of my clients were coaches. And not to knock the bricks and mortar people, but I just had a lot more fun working with the coaches. It just seemed to gel for me more. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to focus solely on coaches and plant that flag in the ground. And then I launched my podcast November of 2014. It was aimed solely for coaches, directed at, and I've kept that rate till then. So my suggestion for anyone who's struggling with the whole niching thing is not to put too much pressure on yourself. I find a lot of people feel like they have to nail it right out of the gate and have this perfect niche, and you're probably going to change, evolve, and as things go on. Just get out there, get started, see who you enjoy working with, and don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Okay. One of the things I find too, and why I called this the spirit of business, spirit being purpose. I find, and you mentioned in your handbook, that you need to find your why. So what I hear you saying is that it took you a little while to find that why, or has that changed?
Yeah, it did. You never know until you get out there working with people. So good examples, I worked with a coach before who wanted to help men who were going through breakups because he had gone through a bad breakup himself, and he wanted to support them. But what he realized after a couple months of doing that is he really didn't enjoy it. So he was kind of feeling depressed. Us men we're not always the best when it comes to dealing with breakups and talking about it and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, he just found it was really heavy and he wasn't feeling good about it. And I've heard that before with people as well in different niches, not just breakups. But there was an example of he wouldn't have known until he actually got out there doing it. And after doing it for a few months and working with people, he thought, nah, this just isn't for me. And that's fine. He changed course. And there's an example.
Right. So what's your why now?
Well, my why now, I guess to back up first, I always say people should have a barbecue pitch. So a barbecue pitch is if I bump into you, Jamie, at a backyard barbecue, and after assuming we're allowed to meet at a barbecue, in these crazy times we might not be allowed to, might get arrested. But if I met you and I said, Jamie, after we get done talking about the weather, the hot dogs or whatever, I said, so what do you do, Jamie? Then your barbecue pitch is really your ideally one sentence answer, which gets the point across to me and is very clear. So if you ask me that question, I would say I help coaches get more clients without paid ads, and then that can invite the conversation to go further. Unfortunately, for a lot of people in online business, if you ask them that question, they'd either look at you like a deer caught in headlights, or they would go into a 5-minute speech to try to explain what you do. And then the person's looking around other parts of the backyard to escape you, with it. So, but my big thing to answer your question about the why is I've seen that there are so many people who would love to have a successful coaching business, to be paid to help people and to coach them and to be making a difference. However, they're struggling and they're really beating their heads against the wall and really frustrated. So my whole thing is making sure that I can get those coaches rolling, get traction, get paying clients, so then they can actually make it. And the reason I like it is it's kind of like if I was just working with a handful of people, Joe Smith that owned a business or whatever, I could do some good, but I can impact a lot more lives if I'm helping a bunch of coaches who in turn can each help hundreds or thousands of people or whatever. There's a very big ripple effect. So that's what's exciting for me.
Okay. Just in your let's talk about online business. So you've built your online business, and you mentioned that you can help people do that without fancy funnels or expensive ads. So how did you build your business when you decided natural born coaches is it?
Well, the way I did it, I threw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, not literally, figuratively speaking. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff by trial and error. And that's why when I'm working with clients now, I tell them, hey, this stuff works because I know, because I did it with my own business. So a little bit of background with me. When I went through, I mentioned I was in real estate before, and I went through not one, but two bad business. I say bad business closures, never good business closure, but I went through a messy business closure and all this stuff. And I was helped back to my feet by several coaches and mentors. And so when I started coaching in 2014, I didn't have the luxury of sitting on a pile of money like I had in real estate, when I could invest a bunch in my marketing for real estate and stuff. And at the time, I thought that was a negative. I thought, oh God, I wish I had access to that cash, right? And you'd have a war chest to build it up. But it was actually a blessing in disguise, because it forced me to roll up my sleeves and do it organically, to get my message out there doing free things, social media, email marketing, podcasts, and all that stuff. So I always tell people not to knock paid ads, because I know it works for some people. However, I have seen a lot of online entrepreneurs lose a lot of money, and flushed it down the toilet with paid ads. And I always say it's never a bad thing to get going organically, to work out your message and to see what message is resonating, what you feel good about. So I'm really, to answer your question, I have 3 what I call pillars for my business. And I always recommend any online entrepreneur choose 3. When I say a pillar, that's a way that you're getting your message out into the ears and eyeballs of your ideal clients. Okay. So my 3 pillars are my podcast. Well, I'll say podcasting. So that's my show, and also going out on shows like this one. So there's podcasting, there's Facebook, but especially my Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. We have almost 20,000 people in there now. So that's a big part of my business. And then the other one is email marketing, and specifically daily emails. I've been doing daily emails now since April of 2016 and haven't missed a day, and I don't plan on missing a day. So if I'm doing podcasting, Facebook group, daily emails, that's essentially what's getting me the vast majority of my business.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the daily emails, because but I want to just ask you about some of the two key tips that you use that you found successful in Facebook, building it organically.
Yeah. So when it comes to Facebook, well, I mean, the same thing could apply for email marketing. I think, first of all, you can't keep a filter on and try to be too, a lot of coaches and online entrepreneurs play in that mushy middle where they don't want to offend anybody, and they just,
Right.
vomit out motivational quotes all day long, or share Gary Vaynerchuk or
Right.
Tony Robbins videos or whatever. People aren't going to rush you if you're doing that, because that's just not going to move the needle enough. So that's the first thing, is take the filter off, but then you have to be consistent on social media too. So I've shown up every day. I'm posting my Facebook group usually 4 to 5 times a day. It could be personal account. I'm staying busy there, doing the fan page or so on. And it's like Darren Hardy talks about in his book, The Compound Effect, that those small actions every day can add up to quite a bit. And I find that a lot of people online just don't have that patience. They want to make $1 million in a week. And if they can't, they move on to something else.
Yeah, they lose interest too quickly. They don't understand it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
I like to talk to you a little bit about filter, because I have seen some of your posts, and you do throw things out there that would be considered somewhat controversial and may have sides to it. Is there a filter to how much you filter, or I mean, do you just open it up and say, look, this is what I feel, and wherever it lands, it lands?
Well, it's a tough balance, because you could very easily spend your whole day fighting with strangers on Facebook if you go too far the other way, and you only have so much energy. So I have to bite my tongue sometimes. I see a lot of opinions on Facebook that I would love to jump in because I disagree with the person, but I'm like, nah, I really don't want to wade into this or whatever. So the way that I view it is, I'm not just putting controversial stuff out there just to troll or to try to poke the bear, like as part of a strategy. The stuff that I'm saying, I believe in. So a good example is I'm a proud capitalist. I talk about capitalism all the time, and Bernie Sanders folks may not like me. Socialist communists may not like my stuff, but they're not my ideal client. I want people who are don't feel guilty about making money and so on. So I have put out pro-capitalism stuff, because capitalism gets bashed a lot nowadays and stuff like that. I've talked about social justice warriors. Really intense social justice warriors aren't my ideal client. I really don't care to work with them, and they probably wouldn't want to work with me, and that's fine with it. So I think if you could tie it into your business, then that's a good way to do it. What I'm seeing nowadays, though, is a lot of people are jumping into the hot topic of the day, and then they're spending their whole days. Everything they're posting is around Trump or COVID, or now we're seeing it with the George Floyd stuff. And I'm not saying don't have strong opinions about it, but be very careful that you're not wasting all of your energy on the hot political, cultural issues of the day. Make sure you're focusing on working on your business as well.
Right. I have a policy. Actually, I don't. I do my most of my social media posts in the morning, but I don't pay attention to any of it during the day. After my day is over, I read the news, I look at the posts, see how things are doing, and what's going on. Because for me, from a mindset standpoint, I find that it's a bit of a challenge. Do you have a strong morning routine?
Yeah, I'm an early riser, so that's I've been that way all my life. I've gotten much better at, before I had that nasty habit of looking at your phone first thing when you wake up, that a lot of people do, and that sets your day off in the wrong way. So when I wake up, I like to do dedicated reading time, journaling, exercising on the days that I'm exercising. And what I've been doing is making sure that I'm only going on Facebook starting at a certain time and only a certain number of times a day, popping in and then getting out, because you can very easily waste an hour if you think you're going in to answer a message or whatever. So I don't stick to it 100%. There are times that I do go earlier than 9 o'clock. My time is when I start, but I'm sticking very closely to that. And same with nighttime shutdown routine. It used to be that I would be on there right until bed, shut down the laptop, and then, you're trying to get to sleep, and that's not great either. So I make sure that I carve out some Marc time in the evening too, to read or hobbies, or, hang out with loved ones and so on.
Very good. And I mean, you do a lot of online. I know there's a lot where people will say, all you have to do is just build your business online. I do it partly because I find it's a good mid to long term strategy. And one of the reasons that I do it is because I know I do a lot of prospecting. I do a lot of calls. And eventually, once my funnel starts to fill up and I have to deliver on those calls, the amount of time I can spend prospecting is going to wane. So I need to have another method in order to bring in potential clients. Do you do a lot of prospecting, calling people, targeting people, any of that?
No, so in my past life in real estate, so there's a story to it. Through that decade in real estate, I had a phone attached to my ear 24/7. I would follow up. Now, this was a stone age, so I would have the recipe cards, and where you jot down the person's name and stuff. It sounds very old school now, but I started selling real estate in 2000, so that gives people an idea. So through those years in real estate, I would follow up with people. I would could be years following up with them, or sometimes it'd be once a week for until they listed their house, right, or until they bought a house. So I started coaching. I thought I really don't want to be a hunter as much as attracting the right people to me. So with coaching, what I do instead is I put my effort into my message, my content creation more so, and then I get the ideal clients coming to me as opposed to me hounding people. I don't mean to say all prospecting is hounding, but you know what I mean? Right. So I still do follow-ups. If I do have conversations with people, I have notes. I hope I'm going to follow up with this person if it's not the right timing now. But my method now is much more getting people, attracting people to me. I don't mean to sound like woo-woo law of attraction type stuff like that, but by putting a message out there that resonates with people, but by the time they reach out to me, they're usually pre-sold because they've been following my podcast or they've been on my email list for years or whatever. They feel like they know me and they sign up, and then bang, it's done, as opposed to me chasing people.
So you're unusual in a lot of the people that I talk to from a business perspective in the way that you're using social media. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was you email people daily.
Right, my list, yeah.
So help me understand, first of all, how do you come up with content? And two, how do you keep people engaged? You must have an incredible unsubscribe list.
Well, I'll start off, I'll preface it by saying I know it sounds crazy because I felt that way before I started emailing daily. I had a guest on my podcast who I've learned a lot from. I've followed him for years. His name's Ben Settle. And Ben I was ready to give up my email list because I was getting my business elsewhere. And I thought, this is just wasting time. No, I was at that time emailing maybe once a week, every 2 weeks, maybe twice a week. It just wasn't consistent. I was basically doing email like 99% of online entrepreneurs. And it was also boring. I had the filter on and it wasn't interesting. So Ben challenged me to try daily emails. I said, you know what do I have to lose? I'm going to cancel my email AWeber anyways. So I'll just do it for 30 days. So I committed to doing it for 30 days and I took the filter off where it really opened up. And sure enough, I started to see results. It wasn't day one or day two, but in those first 30 days, I started to get more responses, replies, business from it. To answer your question about, you can do certain things to warn people. So when they subscribe to my list, the first email that they get with when they get their free resource that I give them in exchange for their email, I'm very clear that, by the way, I email daily. Right? But it's not going to be boring or garbage. It's going to be good stuff, but just give you a heads up, you're going to be getting emails from me daily. And that does chase some people away. I say my list is self-purging. I don't have to go in and purge it myself because I chase away anyone who, and that's fine. They probably, they probably wouldn't have bought from me anyways, but that's their choice. I don't want, and I actually make an offer in every single email too, by the way. So it's not that I'm, some of these emails are with internet marketing speak that you just feel like vomiting. They got all the exclamation points and the bold caps letter. And it just real kind of feels cheesy.
Yeah, and they go.
My emails are written pretty much like I talk. I don't get into fancy graphics. It's just text based, and it's not the exaggerations and all that. I usually tell a story, give a quick lesson or something, and then there's a very quick transition to a call to action to take the next step. So I'll say what I have to say, and they'll say, by the way, I go over this in greater detail in the in next month's issue of the Secret Coach Club newsletter. Click here to subscribe, or whatever, something like that. It's not like 1,000 words of heavy sales pitch.
Do you have a call to action on every email?
I do, but you being in Ontario, you'd appreciate this. There was one email that I didn't include a call to action. It was after Roy Halladay, the former pitcher of the Toronto Blue Jays, died in a plane crash off the coast of Florida. And I'm a big Blue Jays fan. I get up to your neck of the woods every summer. Well, when baseball's being played, yeah. I've loved the Blue Jays since I was 5 years old. So I was a big Roy Halladay fan, and I obviously never met Roy Halladay, and it's not like I was stuck in bed for a week crying when he died, but it did hit me because the guy was just a pure professional, right? And I watched so many of his games on TV, and I just really thought he was great. So when he died, I was like, oh, geez. So what I did was the next day I sent an email around with some lessons that I learned from watching Roy Halladay. And it wouldn't have felt right to then say, oh, by the way, check out the sale I'm doing on blah, 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 right? So that one I didn't include a call to action, but I can't recall. Now, when I say call to action, it might be a link to my, often it's to my newest podcast episode that gets released Monday mornings. It could be something like that, or to a webinar that I'm doing with a joint venture partner. I just think it's really important to invite people to take the next step. And, if they're not cool with that, they can unsubscribe. What I suggest for people with, especially if you're emailing daily, you'll probably have a setting in your email platform that you can turn off a notice whenever someone unsubscribes. So if I didn't change that, let's say you unsubscribed from my list, Jamie, I would see Jamie Pritchard has unsubscribed, and then you'd have a place to put feedback. You might say, Mark, I think you're an idiot. You stop sending me so many emails, you piece of crap. And then that gets into my head, and then I kind of think, oh, gee. Or if you don't say anything, I might say, gee, I know Jamie, and he just unsubscribed. What did I say in the last email that ticked him off? Was it this line? Was it that line? And you get kind of wondering. I prefer to not even see it. So I could check my stats and my dashboard with Aweber to see how many people subscribed and unsubscribed each day. But I don't want to know individual Joe and Mary Smith why they unsubscribed. I just prefer not to even look at that. Right.
So right now you have you've built a business around two core centers. One being your podcast, Natural Born Coaches, and the other being the Coaching Jungle Mastermind. To help people with the development of a business. You talked earlier about initially painting a very broad brush. You weren't sure where the niche was going to go. And then once you decided that you wanted to go to coaches, you were all in Natural Born Coaches. And in November 2014, you started there. When did the idea of a coaching jungle or a mastermind start to come from that?
So with the Facebook, I have a Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle, and that's one that has almost 20,000 members in it. The Coaching Jungle Mastermind is a small collection of groups that I facilitate every Monday. We do the calls where they're capped at 8 people per mastermind. So they're, I guess 2 different things, but the mastermind is called the Coaching Jungle Mastermind because it's for people mostly in the Facebook group that want to get that next level of accountability support.
So the mastermind is more of a private group for people.
It's basically a paid version. So the Coaching Jungle Facebook group is really in a lot of ways the top of my funnel where people join. It's free. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. They get good information. Hopefully they get to know, like, and trust me, and then they will take the next step to invest in what I'm offering, to help them further with it. So I do think it's important to have a community somewhere to gather people. I was just talking with a client of mine the other day about this because he's out there on social media floating around, posting on, different channels and stuff, but he doesn't have a home base to bring people to. And the analogy that I used, I said, right now he's kind of like a boat out in the ocean, a very noisy ocean, when he really should be more of an island to bring people to.
I love
And
that
that
analogy.
might be a messy metaphor, but he
No, I
doesn't
think
have an
it's great.
island. Yeah. So
It's
he's
great.
starting a Facebook group. We chatted this morning, actually, and he's working on the name, the branding, everything else, because I said, I really want him to have a place to bring people to where he's seen as the expert and the leader and someone that people can get to know, like, and trust in that place. So I do think that that's important. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. Or if they do have, let's say, a Facebook group, it's kind of on life support or there's not much going on in there. I
Right.
started my Facebook group in the fall of 2015. With it, I had run other groups before then, but really the coaching jungle started the fall of 2015, and it's been a big part of my business. So I'm a huge fan of Facebook groups.
Fantastic. Do you join other groups as well and comment? Or are you?
Yeah, I'm in other groups often to support a client, for example, or if it's someone I do business with and stuff. And I'll sometimes, sometimes communicate and talk. Here's something that's kind of off the wall, but I'll share it because it could help some people. So one of the things I do, and I think you've commented on my post, you probably rolled your eyes a few times when you see my daily, I'll post, usually around supper time, my time, I'll post a pun or a meme with like some sort of, my humor is very dry, dad joke type humor, puns or whatever. So I do that just because people, I think, want to do business with real people, not just like logos and people who are always talking business, right?
Right.
So I'm in some groups that are pun groups, and if I see one that's funny, I'll save it. And then that's one that's shared on my personal one. And what's interesting is some of those have gotten just crazy. One of them got, I think, 1,700 shares because it's crazy. It was, and it wasn't even one that was mind blowing. I didn't think it would get a lot of activity. It was a meme with, everyone's heard the Australian saying, put another shrimp on the Barbie.
Right.
Was, it had an actual Barbie doll on a barbecue. And it had like, I think it was the Elf on a Shelf, those things that was putting an actual Barbie on the barbecue. So, put a Barbie on there instead of the shrimp. And then it said something about that, which is kind of silly. I just threw it up. It took 2 seconds. That one ended up just going really viral and it got almost 2,000 shares. And it just was going for probably 2 weeks after I posted. It was nonstop, which I would have never thought. So I'm not saying you have to do that, but that works for me because it fits my personality and my somewhat lame sense of humor. But find something that shows your personal, it could be a hobby, it could be an interest or something like that, and then mix it in because people do want to do business with actual people.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I have there's a business advisor, our financial advisor here in Guelph who does exactly the same thing. And he sends out, sometimes they're okay. And other times I groan. I usually comment I give them 1 out of 10 or occasionally they're kind of funny, but he does exactly the same thing. And he gets a lot of follows on that. And that's just part of who he is. Because if you meet him in person, he's always throwing them out there and you're groaning but it's him.
Yeah.
And it's part of who he is. So I guess with COVID, you're 100% home based.
Yeah, I've been home based, so it didn't really change much of my business. Yeah.
Okay, and same for me. I was about 80-20, and then when that hit, it was just I was in the process of moving anyway. So if you were to just to wrap this up, if you were to give an owner a service-based business that's looking at starting online, what are the 3 key things that they have to keep in mind?
Well, I think we touched on it earlier. First of all, don't be afraid to take the filter off. It's your social media, and you shouldn't be afraid to put out, your opinions, right? And don't feel like you have to conform just because other people say it. So one of the things I take pride in, some people would say it's a fault, but I've never deleted a social media post, even though I've had pressure from some people say, Mark, you should delete this because, basically offended them. I'm like, no, that's my social media. It's your choice. You can
Right.
leave, right? So I think nowadays that you have to, Richard Nixon had a quote where he was talking about politics, but I think the same with business, that the only thing worse than being wrong is being boring. So in the sea of so many people online, if you're boring, you're going to just get lost in the shuffle. So I would say go.
And I think on that, I mean, having viewed a lot of your posts and some of the things that come out, I think for the viewers, we need to qualify that you're not crass. You just take a side on an opinion, and I have to say some I have agreed with. I'm right there with you, and others I'm like, Mark, what are you thinking? But it's
Yeah.
not anything that I think personally that should be taken down or withdrawn. And I think one of the challenges in today's world is I miss those conversations where you could sit and argue or have conversations about differing points of view and
Yeah.
still be friends at the end of it. And that's what I find in your attempt to when you talk about taking the filter off, is just to express your opinion. This is what I believe, and there's going to be people that are going to disagree, but I feel that you and I could have a conversation about that, and we could still agree to disagree.
Yeah, I don't mind if people disagree with me. It'd be boring if everyone agreed. So if someone's
Yep.
respectful and there's a good debate, I like that, because sometimes I've said, "Oh, gee, I didn't think of it this way." They make a good point. What I don't like is when somebody just goes to personal attacks as opposed to talking about the issue, or somehow trying to silence you. Like I hate cancel culture that's going on. I've seen a huge difference since I started in 2014 online. I started to notice things get really wacky online after 2016 with the election in the States. That's when everyone seemed to lose their minds and go all crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward. I shouldn't say I'm not looking forward to the 2020 because I love politics. It'll be interesting, but I'm also going to be limiting my social media time because I think it's going to be a real dumpster fire that's on there. So I would say take the filter off.
Take the filter off.
Yeah,
Yep.
be consistent. So don't fall into that trap of saying, I got to make money with X in the next 7 days, or I'm going to move on to something else. So anything I've done with things like the podcasting, daily emails, or so on, I don't put pressure on myself and say, I have to make money from this tomorrow. I say, I'm going to do the best job I can, be patient with it, and keep putting it out there. Just like water wearing down a rock. It doesn't happen right away, but drip, 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 eventually it will. Right. And then the final, I mean, they're like, give probably more than I'm trying to think of a good third one that I would say. I would say be really clear on your offers. And if I'm confused, the marketplace is going to be confused too. So don't feel like you have to give too much choice or too much selection. A lot of people think by doing that, they'll get more sales. They're probably going to get fewer sales doing it that way.
Right. Okay. And then the third? Oh, I'm sorry. You said, yeah.
Yeah, that was the third. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate your time and sharing your insight into online businesses. And if people want to get in touch with you, is there any other way other than mark.coach?
Well, I'd say the Coaching Jungle Facebook group. I'm in there every day. So if they go to thecoachingjungle.com, that will take them there. My podcast is Natural Born Coaches, and that's at naturalborncoaches.com. And we've done almost 700 episodes. So we've covered pretty much any topic imaginable for coaches over the years. So naturalborncoaches.com, or of course, as you mentioned, is mark.coach, and that's Mark with a C.
All right. Thank you very much.